Hello, bearded bee people. Welcome back to Being KBs. I did graft earlier today, and I should have done my tips and tricks on grafting video then, but it was kind of a crazy time. I had people showing up for queens, and I had to hurry up, and so therefore I wasn't in the position to be able to talk. But I will do that now because they are fairly simple concepts, but they weren't quite so obvious to me when I first started, so I think that if you're just getting into queen rearing or if you've only grafted a couple of times, that these tips might help you out. First of all, I use Chinese grafting tools. Here, I'm gonna talk while I'm putting frames in these boxes. So I use Chinese grafting tools, and the reason for that is because of the fact that you can pick up the royal jelly along with the larva, and it's got that little push tube that helps you push the larva right off of it, which makes it a lot easier as opposed to the JZBZ tool where you kind of have to be able to lay the larva down and it's difficult to get it off the tool. So, assuming that you're going to take my advice and use Chinese grafting tools as well, the first tip that I have for you is pick up the royal jelly, not the larva. The larva that we're going after, the larvae that we're going after when we're grafting is so tiny that if you concentrate on that larva, you're going to end up hurting it, you're going to end up rolling it, or you're going to end up just messing up the graft altogether. So what I realized is a good school of thought or a good plan of attack is trying to scoop up all the royal jelly right underneath the larva. So, oh, and another one is bend the tip over from the grafting tool. So this is the bamboo part that goes underneath and slides. Bend that over because that'll allow you to not have to create such an extreme angle to be able to scoop underneath it. So what I do is I put it in my mouth and kind of bend it against my teeth a few times before I start grafting so that I can kind of just tip it up so that it's easier once again to scoop up and underneath the larva to pick it up. Okay, so assuming that you've got the bent tip Chinese grafting tool, try to pick up the royal jelly underneath the larva. If you do that, you're going to end up scooping up some royal jelly along with that larva, and it's going to be just easy and much less of a hassle trying to pick up that tiny, tiny, almost invisible larva. Another tip is make sure that you have warm and wet washcloths ready for your bars after they're done. Especially if you're just beginning, because of the fact that it's going to take you longer and you don't want those larvae that you grafted to desiccate. So make sure that you've got a warm, wet washcloth to drape over the bars when you're done. Another tip is grab way more donor stuff than you think you're going to need. And by that I mean the graft frames that you're grabbing from your breeder hive. Grab 2. If you don't think that there's enough on there, grab 3. Take your time and make sure that you find ample amounts of correctly aged larvae so that you're not worried about not having enough when you get them to wherever it is that you're going to graft. That's a real issue when you've done everything you can, you've grafted a bar and a half, and then you realize you're running out of viable larvae. That can be a real problem. So grab more than you think you need. Okay, so another tip is do whatever it is you can to be able to see these larvae. If you remember from the grafting video, I take my right contact out because I'm nearsighted. If you don't have that ability, and it really is kind of a great ability, it's one of the only instance in my life where my nearsightedness has become an asset. But if you don't have that asset, good for you. Get yourself some magnifying glasses, some bifocals, maybe like a jeweler's monocle, anything that you can get to be able to make you see those larvae well will help you because, once again, they're almost invisible if you're going at the correctly aged larvae. So another tip is don't worry about the combs you're grafting from. Bend them, break them, do whatever you can to be able to get underneath that larva as effectively as you can without having to kind of push it or you know, drag it up the side of the cell. So what I do a lot of the time, depending on where that larva is at the bottom of the cell, is break the wall down so that I can go at it at more of a shallow angle. Because if you go at it too steeply, you're likely to grab the bottom of the cell and push the wax off, and then you're not going to get that larva. So what you really want to do is you want to have a nice shallow angle. So another one that's tied into that is use old brood comb. Old brood comb and black plastic frames if you can. A black plastic frame is just the best in terms of having visibility on those larvae. So these are just essential in my opinion. But if you don't have those, or regardless of if you have those or not, grab old brood comb. It's less brittle. You're not likely to scoop the wax off of the bottom quite as much. You'll be able to see the larvae a lot better, and it's just a lot more durable when you're going in there with that tool as opposed to the fresh stuff. So really, really try to avoid those freshly drawn combs. Let's see. I think that's it. I didn't write these down. These are just things that I've kind of come to the realization of over the last few years. So yeah, like I said, I think that's it. Thanks for watching. Let me know if you have any questions in the comment section below. I might remember some stuff later and then I'll end up having to put it into a different video. But I appreciate the heck out of you watching. Get out there and have some freaking fun with your freaking bees.